A good principle when you're doing snap restoration is do it justice. If you have a picture that is blurry of nothing in particular, then it's not worth spending a lot of time trying to restore it. On the other hand, if you've got a professionally taken portrait that has sentimental value, that's the time to pull out all the stops, be meticulous, get rid of all those dust, scratches, stains, fading, and so on. I've loaded such a picture into Photoshop Elements version 10. The tools I'm going to use and the workflow are the same as I've shown in my other videos. We're just going to be a little bit more careful this time, and also I'll point out one or two particular features that are new. So here is our image, and we begin by thinking about global changes. The levels are good in this image and the color is fine too. But let's just take a look at the whole thing and pan around it. We can zoom in using the wheel on the mouse, and we can move around by holding down the space bar and moving the mouse around. Well, the subject of the picture is clear, in focus. There's quite a lot of detail in there. Not a lot of grainy noise, but outside around the edges there are lots of dust and scratches, lots of things we want to get rid of. And over here there's a particularly nasty bit of green that is rather unfortunate. Also there's a strip along the bottom that looks maybe like it ought to be cropped out. So how do we tackle this? We begin in the same way as the standard workflow, which is to create a duplicate layer. Go to the Layer menu, Duplicate Layer, OK. And over here we've got a copy that is overlaid on our original picture. That's the thing we're going to work on for the time being to remove the dust and the scratches. Next, let's zoom in to an area where we have some of those impairments. Choose a filter, Filter, Noise, and as usual I'll go for dust and scratches. Never change the radius, anything more than 1 and the picture will get blurry. The threshold, well, do we want it high to allow a lot through? Not that high, obviously. Or low, when it smooths out even small variations. We want it reasonably high, I would say. So this is in the 30s or so. Quite often I go down to the teens or even lower. But the point is here that there is fine detail that is meant to be there, that isn't noise, and we don't want to get that mixed up in this filtering operation. So there we are, about 35. Let's try that. So far so good, but now we have to go local. There are still lots of big spots of noise that we have to get rid of, and for that we need these tools on the left hand side, the spot healing brush and the clone stamp tool. We use them in the same way as normal, that's to say we zoom the picture in and we go meticulously through removing instances of noise. But because the background is so blurry, even though this is one we're taking care about, we can still be quite fast in this. We need to have selected the healing brush key and then just click around in places where there are those spots that just shouldn't be there. So we can work through the image, picking up the big spots, picking up little ones as well, ones that the automated filter didn't quite get to, and zigzag our way down. And you see that it's quite possible to click away without too much consideration of things going wrong, because we're far away from any object boundaries and the texture just gets filled in nicely. I'll click up there, get rid of that. Here's some scratches on the side, we can drag over that. So this is fairly straightforward. We're able to remove these impairments fairly quickly. Now I could of course be even more careful, looking for tiny hairs, tiny scratches and so on. But really I can pick up just about everything very quickly indeed. Here's a bigger one. Let's make sure we've got that little hair there. It's quite alright to dodge around. This one just here goes over the object boundary, and if we go right in, you see there's a faint line horizontally across the picture. We need to get both of those. So I'm going to tackle this one by dragging across here, dragging across in the background. That seems to have got it. This one I'll dot my way in. I don't want to inherit any of the foreground colour in the healing brush, so I might come back to that in a little while. I'll come to the interior of the face very soon. What about this green stuff down here? If we use the healing brush for this, what it'll tend to do is just rearrange some of the green and blue pixels, whereas really I want to paint over them. Got to be careful though, because you notice this area is darker than most of the rest of the background. So if I just copied an area using the clone stamp tool, then it would probably look out of place. Got to be careful. Let's select clone stamp, and then make sure we choose somewhere nearby like this. Whoops. To choose somewhere, press down the Alt key and click. And then we're going to take multiple passes at this, gradually erasing it. We'll try to make it fade into a darker colour, rather like that, and then back up again. Okay, so we've got most of that noise now, and certainly at full size it's not very visible. As we go around the picture, we can see it's roughly about the same amount of noise as the rest of the picture. Now it is good to keep revisiting areas, because at different zoom levels you will see other little bits of noise, and we want to try and get this as clean as possible. Once we've done the background, we can go inside the face, and what we are going to have to look for are even quite small distortions. Now we can say ahead of time that we don't need to pay too much attention to the eyes, the nostrils and so on, because those are areas that we're going to bring back with the eraser. So even if we find some noise there and we remove it, later on we're going to get the sharper version back from the background, and then we have to do that again. So we don't need to be really careful about those areas, but we can see some very faint structural lines down here which really don't exist in the true face, and there's this horizontal line that I spoke about before. Let's dab our way across that, sometimes using different sizes of healing brush to just mix up the effect. So there we are. That's been removed. It was very faint anyway. And then there's the one that crossed the boundary here. I'm going to try using the brush across the boundary. Oftentimes it's very good at crossing a boundary. This time I think, yes, that's pretty good. Okay, so we've got most of the facial noise. Is there any in the clothing? Oh, there's a little hair just there. We need to get rid of that. Piece in the background that I missed. Okay, not there. Good. Okay, so now we are ready, I think, to go back to our original in the areas of real sharpness that are important. So we're going to start using the eraser for that. Let's pick up the eraser over here, and we're going to start erasing around the eyes. Now you see there's very little difference here, which means that the initial filtering did not take away key features. But still, it's very good practice to do this, because you want the maximum resolution that you can in the finished version. Let me just turn off the background layer here so we can see where I have erased. We might just want a little bit more around those features, like so. Perhaps the hair needs to come back a little. Let's just check. Let's run this over the hair. The effect is very slight indeed, but there is a slight sharpening there. Now we can choose whether we want to sharpen up these words on the shirt. It makes very little difference in this case. It's always good as well just to think about fingers. Okay, so this, I would say, is about ready now. We need to consolidate the changes, which means layer, flatten image. And if we were unhappy about this line at the bottom, then we can take the crop tool, run it over, zoom into the bottom, and just take that up high enough so that it excludes any of that black bar. And there's our finished picture.